Let's talk about how to transform your business inside of a single year. And most people are actually in a place where they actually do need to transform their business, not make a change here or there, but actually throw everything out and get it really pointed in the right direction. And I say that because people will start out a business thinking they're going to own the business, and the business quickly ends up owning them. It's taking all of their time, all of their mental energy. They're not present with their families even when they are home because they're thinking about all the different problems that are going on inside of their business. So this video is designed to help you see a very clear path over the next 12 months of what you can do to shift all of that and to make a transformation from the business owning you to you ultimately being the owner of that business. And just in case you don't know who I am, my name is Brent Kokel. I've been an entrepreneur for over 17 years, and I've built 2 different 7-figure and multiple 7-figure businesses. So what I'm going to share with you isn't theory that you might learn in business school. It's stuff that I've actually experienced inside of my own businesses and inside of my life. So let's jump to it. The first thing is actually the hardest thing, which is to focus on the one thing. The one thing that's the most important in your business. You might ask, well, what's the most important thing? My answer is it depends. It depends on the specific challenge that you face right now in your business. And let's just take a look at the front end of a business, which is production, where you're getting new customers in through advertising, marketing, sales, and then on the back end, you're fulfilling whatever you provide to those customers, a product, a service, or an experience. So if you find yourself in a situation where there isn't enough customers coming in the door to buy whatever it is that you're selling, then you've got a problem on the front end, and that problem might be inside of your marketing. And your marketing is your message. Like, what's the promise that you're making to people if they come in and they wind up doing business with you? It could be your advertising, which is the vehicle to deliver your marketing message, or it could be sales, which is the fulfillment piece of the front end in the customer acquisition phase. But let's just say you've got enough leads coming in, and now what you've got to do is actually fulfill what you say you're going to do for more of those customers. And so if fulfillment is the issue, where I've got enough leads, but I just can't figure out how to scale what I'm doing right now, that's exactly what to focus on. And it's going to be tough because what happens is you get one piece of advice and another piece of advice. You read this book, you read that book, and you don't really know what to do. My strong advice in this one from experience, because I've screwed this up plenty of times, is to focus just on one thing first. That's the deal. You've got to fix one thing, then you can move on to the next. You might end up getting 5 or 6 major areas of focus done to transform your business inside of a year, but you won't do 5 or 6 areas all at once. So pick the biggest challenge and look at this like, what's the biggest obstacle to you getting what you want? If you want to have more top line revenue, then you wind up having a sales problem, marketing problem, advertising problem. If you want to figure out how to simply deal with the sales volume you've already got coming in, then what we've got is a fulfillment problem. I use those because those are mostly the problems that people will talk about that they've got when they're in this stage where they are getting owned by the business and they ultimately want to own it. Later on down the way, we've got optics, we've got systems, we've got people, we've got cash, we've got legal, we've got accounting, like a whole bunch of stuff down the road. But if that's where you are right now, which would pretty much just be like in the first 2 or 3 years of having a business, one of those 2 is probably your problem. And that's the one that at least I would look at and focus on first. Second thing, forcing yourself can be a good thing. You're going to have to force yourself to do some things that right now you're not comfortable doing. If you're not actively marketing, you're going to need to get comfortable doing that. If you're not actively advertising, you might need to get comfortable doing that. Active marketing, by the way, is doing things like live videos, producing YouTube videos, recording podcasts. Anything that gets you and your brand and your name out there is somebody that people might want to do business with. They might identify with you. That's the marketing aspect of it that you probably need to get comfortable with. And it's really uncomfortable at the start. I know that it was for me because of all the comments that I would get, specifically like on Facebook and Instagram, when I just really didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't really comfortable talking in front of the camera, and people would make fun of me. They'd talk shit about me. And it was something where I had to force myself to do it because I knew what was coming on the back end. And Looking back on it now, I'm glad I did. I'm a lot more comfortable in front of the camera now, and I believe that that really built some character inside of doing that. But you also might need to find yourself getting really uncomfortable in advertising. Advertising is the quickest way to get your message out to people, and there's a number of different things that you can do for advertising. Matter of fact, I did a video just on this piece of acquiring new customers. You can click the pop-out banner there and you can listen to it. But what's going down in advertising that is really, really uncomfortable, and you have to force yourself to do it, is watch the ad spend go out with the mindset that no matter what, you're buying data. So you might not make sales off of your initial ads, but you're buying what doesn't work. You're buying data from who's viewing your ads, who's clicking on your ads, and understanding that ultimately gets you really close to where you want to be. But let's say that you wind up having something where you need to find yourself uncomfortable when you're dealing with employees. Maybe you've never had employees before. Maybe you weren't a manager, or maybe you never supervised anybody. Because most people that start businesses are really good at the technical work, but they're not really good at understanding the business that does the technical work. And so you're going to have to force yourself to get out of your comfort zone in terms of leadership and how you talk to people. It's very easy to let stuff slide and not address it right away. And that ultimately erodes your culture to the point where you've got to make a dramatic course correct to get everybody back into place where you ultimately want them to be. So you've got to be willing to push yourself. Now, what happens with this is that when you force yourself to do something, there's a period of time where it is feeling like you're just climbing uphill and there's no way that it's ever going to get easier. But after you force yourself, it turns into a habit. And the habits that you build up by forcing yourself ultimately turn into results. And once you get results, then what happens is it starts to become an addiction, because the habits that produce the results become your addiction. And that is something where it's good that you had to force yourself on the front end in order to do it. Another tough piece of business transformation that's easy to say but tough to do is recognize that you're on your own side. It's really easy to talk shit to yourself about yourself because something didn't go right. You thought something was going to work out one way and it just didn't work out for whatever reason. Maybe the messaging was wrong. Maybe you bet on the wrong supplier. Maybe you bet on the wrong customer that was going to pay you a lot but ended up being somebody you didn't want to do business with. It's really easy to get into a downward spiral, especially when it's setback after setback after setback, or if you feel like you're just taking one step forward and two steps back. It can feel like you question yourself. You question your own ability to be able to pull it off in the first place, if you should have started your own business in the first place. There's even going to be some times when you think maybe I should go back to work for somebody else. And I say that because I've even had those thoughts like when I was like 13 to 15 years into it. Being an entrepreneur can be very dark at times when it doesn't go the way that you think. So you've got to recognize that you're on your own side. Talking shit to yourself about yourself does nothing to build you up. The converse way to go about this is to find something, anything that you're grateful for that went right in the business every single day, and make a note of it in a journal at night. This is what went well today, and have gratitude for the thing that went well. That sounds like such a simple little thing to do when you're listening to it, but I can tell you from my experience, it is a dramatic shift in mindset and feeling about how I'm doing, feeling about how the business is doing, all predicated on that one little thing, which is just finding out what went well that day and really truly feeling gratitude for it. Gets you through some really, really dark times. Wherever you are on your entrepreneurial journey, know that transformation is something that is going to be constant, because your business is going to turn into one thing and then it's going to morph into another, and then it's going to morph into another one after that. It's a very natural cycle. Businesses don't stay the same. Client bases don't stay the same. Employee bases don't stay the same. Systems don't stay the same. The only thing that stays the same is you, the entrepreneur, the one that is running the show. And so having your mind constantly focused on how things can be improved, what's going well right now, what's not going so well right now, and what am I ultimately going to do about it, is the difference between people who stay stuck having a business that does less than $1 million a year and those that go forward and go on to the 2 to 10 to $15 million a year range. It's all based on the mindset, because the only real difference, let's take skill set aside. Right? There's skill sets, there's fundamental skill sets that entrepreneurs need to have. They need to be able to market, they need to be able to sell, they need to be able to fulfill, they need to be able to manage, they need to be able to lead, recruit, hire, train, like a lot of skill sets that wind up in there. But the difference, when all skill sets are the same, is really the traits. The ability to handle stress is the difference between guys that build okay companies in the $1 to $3 million range and the guys that build the really good companies that are in the $10 to $15 million range with 30% margins. It's their ability to handle stress. So going through each one of these things is really designed to help you handle that stress. If all you're focused on one thing at one time, it reduces the stress because now you're not dealing with 50 different things at one time. It's okay to force yourself because you're getting yourself out of a stressful spot, but you're doing it on your terms. Because if you don't take those actions you know you need to take, well, then the fight is going to come to you and that's going to cause a different type of stress. So this is good stress, getting it out there into the universe, recognizing that you're on your own side, being grateful about at least one thing that went well for you that day is another thing that's really going to help you manage all the stress of building the business that you know that you can build. All right, guys, that is this video here. I hope it does everything it needs to transform your business inside of the next year.